Awesome. So we've got a super exciting session for you guys today. We're going to be breaking down the principles of platform engineering and kind of talking about what platform as a service means and doing a really cool demo at the end with some generative AI, of course, since it's 2024, and talking about how we really empower developer experience and minimize some of the complexities that developer and operation teams kind of experience now in this world of cloud native, of course, since we're at KCD New York. And speaking of that, I kind of just want to say, not only do we have the opportunity to talk, but we're also helping to organize the event today. So it's just been really exciting to be here and to share wisdom and to share learning and knowledge with you guys and make history in the first KCD ever in New York. Woo! So thank you guys. So as you see, my title is a developer advocate, but I have a unique position because I kind of grew up in a world where I've always been able to work with containers and Kubernetes, and so I'm quite privileged to be able to do so. My experience is in developer tooling. I work on the projects Podman and Podman Desktop. If anyone has used Podman before, sweet. Awesome. It's a great project. I help contribute there and work with the team. And I'm also joined by my great friend Valentina.
Yes. Hi, I'm Valentina. I'm a Principal Technical Marketing Manager at Red Hat. So basically my work is building solutions to help customers adopt our Red Hat products. I'm very passionate about containers, OpenShift, all of that. But before Red Hat, I've been a developer for like almost, 15 years. So I'm very passionate about implementing solutions, software engineering, all of that. I work in different industries. I learn a lot. And then when I started working at Red Hat, I started helping as well customers to, bring modernization over. So I'm very excited to be here as well. This event is going great, so I'm very passionate about it. And yeah, we can talk. Yeah, and also I've been introducing everyone in this room today, so I'm very happy to be here, finally talking with Cedric here. So our agenda for today, we will talk about developer persona, platform engineering, as well as the hot topic of platform as a product that you probably heard about it. We will look at internal developer portals and platforms. We also have a couple of demos to show you. And at the end, we want to share some learnings. So we will go over some best practices as well as reference architectures. Yes. Woo-hoo. So yeah, we are ready to start. So Cedric, I know you are building an application, and I want to hear everything about it.
Okay, well, let's just go ahead and start with the first step, which is essentially, I'll go ahead and pull out my editor. Maybe it's VS Code, Eclipse, whatever it might be. Figure out what framework or language I'm going to be working with. Do we have any Java people in the house?
Yeah, not many. That's okay.
Nice. And so I'm told that back in the day, this is all that we had to do, right? We just coded all day and it was easy. But now I feel like in 2024 and nowadays with everything being cloud native, it's a lot more complex, right? We have to work with a container registry and a container runtime, whether we're using Podman or Docker. We got to think about where we're actually storing and sharing our container images, and of course, a place to run containers, of course, being Kubernetes. And now we're thinking about the YAML and writing YAML code that doesn't even really have to relate to our application. And as a developer, this is starting to kind of get a little complex, but it doesn't just end there with the containerization part, right?
It doesn't. So you were saying you are creating this beautiful application. I know it will be fantastic. You tested locally. It seems great. So you have your base image, right? You're using OpenJDK. You're using probably IntelliJ or Eclipse to do that, or Visual Studio Code. But now we start thinking about how we can automate these processes. So we start thinking about CI/CD. So we need to bring Tecton over in order to start building our pipelines. Then we are thinking about how we can do configuration as code and having one source of truth, right, with Argo. So we put everything in our repository, and that will be impacting all the objects within Kubernetes, right, cluster. But don't forget about Helm. We want to use Helm because of the Helm charts. It's really nice, right? But on top of that, remember we need to include observability, Grafana, Prometheus, right? But also, what about Istio? We need to ensure that we have a good traffic management and security. So Yeah, there are a lot of things we need to start thinking and considering. What do you think about that?
I think this is starting to get a little overwhelming, and you probably might feel like this as well when you take a look at the CNCF landscape. And this GIF is from a couple years ago, and it's just kind of exploded with the amount of projects and different technology that we have for every specific use case that our company might need. And it's overwhelming. It's honestly a lot to deal with. And I think we can all agree that developers are under pressure, right? Because of this cognitive load of having to deal with a lot of different technologies that differ from just our day-to-day job of actually having to write code, from modernizing our applications and dealing with everything cloud native now, from just, oh, it works on my machine, to learning new technologies, of course, for getting our certifications and all those different technologies you talked about, Valentina. As well as this general mindset I like to think of, okay, if you're building the application, you figure out how to make it run. And I think this adds a lot of new tasks and responsibilities to developers that have really decreased productivity.
Yeah, and that brings to this wall of confusion, right? Is it developer, is it ops, who will do this work? When we talk about dev and ops, we talk about DevOps as well and those practices. But is that enough? Because we need to start thinking about other teams, right? What about security? We want to include security from the start, ensuring that we are implementing best practices, the company guidelines. But what about networking? We want to ensure that there is connectivity inside and maybe outside the cluster. So there is still a lot that we need to communicate, and that overhead is really difficult and challenging. So there should be another way. But before going to that, I want to ask you how you work right now within your platform.
Oh, well, you know, we've got the basics down, right? We've got a stable state that we're working with. We've defined our requirements initially, and any requests that come into us, you know, resources, services that need to be provisioned, right? We're handling with tickets, Jira, ServiceNow, whatever it might be. And it's kind of a slow platform to any kind of needs that might change, trends that might come up, new technologies that we need to adapt.
Yeah, that doesn't sound fun, right?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No.
So what we want to propose is to start thinking on building the platform as a product. And that is changing really the mindset, but building first a foundation and considering all the business and user needs into requirements. So we can start building that platform with everything that we need, and it can be agile. And also, we want to be able to resolve this request on demand and dynamically. So how that will sound? It feels that it will help you, right?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds great.
Great. Okay.
Now, I kind of want to step back and take a look at what we have right now. So we've got our application platform running on whatever operating system. We've got all these great features, right? We've got developer tools to increase my productivity, tools for observability monitoring, Prometheus and Grafana, tools for RBAC, compliance, security. And it's a great way to deploy our applications, right? But on the other side, we've got our application developers, people like us who front end, back end, whatever it might be. In the age of AI, of course, we've got engineers and data scientists for AI-enabled applications. But I feel like there's this gap in between the actual application platform where we're deploying our applications and the developers and any other personas that are using it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So how we can connect those platforms with those personas?
Well, I think a lot of us think, especially in the CNCF community, that platform engineering may be the way to go. And it kind of allows us to offer this self-service guided portal with best practices and guardrails so that our developers can get the services that they need and the applications they need deployed on their cluster with all the best practices and security in hand, right?
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So platform engineering, how many of you already heard about platform engineering? Yeah, everyone, yes. So Gartner named platform engineering as one of the top 10 strategic technology trends for this year. But also, that sounds fantastic, right? Yeah, we are on the right talk. IDC also predicts that by 2027, 70% of the enterprise will adopt a composable internal-facing application platform to empower those developers. That is great. Yes.
That is great.
So continue looking into platform as a product to evolve those capabilities on the platform to create a possibility to innovate without friction.
Now, I have a question, Valentina. What is a platform?
Yeah, so according to Evan Butcher, a digital platform is a foundation of self-service APIs, tools, knowledge, and support, which are arranging to really create a compelling internal product. So APIs, tools, services, and knowledge. Mm-hmm. And as many of you are familiar with the tip of the iceberg, right? If we think on the platform, nowadays we need to start thinking on an application platform, that we have everything to build applications, but also to serve different personas. So the main idea is all the complexity. We want to hide all that complexity that we need to the end users. And the end users should have that nice experience without compromising best practices and security. So these are just some of the best practices that we probably all know we need on a platform. So if we start from the bottom, of course, network, storage, security in place, authentication, all of that, source control, security and runtime, continuous integration. But then at the top, we want to provide that experience to the end users, developers, data scientists, engineers, that we allow increased applications capabilities, but also have that developer experience. For example, by allowing them to work with internal developer platforms, such as Backstage.
Now, I think we missed something at the bottom, because all of these APIs, tools, services, and knowledge, they're kind of arranged as a compelling internal product. What does that mean?
Yeah. So when we start thinking about those products, we start thinking about what is important for me when I start building that platform. So there are certain pillars that I need to consider in order to build that platform. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is onboarding, because I have seen many issues with this. Just users waiting for months to access one cluster, right? Where compliance is critical, we understand, and company guidelines are critical, but that is really creating friction and is having a stop to innovation. So we really need to create that streamlined process that developers and end personas can access this platform on the same way, really easily and quickly. So the other thing we need to think is how we can allow to code, build, and runtime. So to code on the local environments, to have a fast, reliable process, and to build that with a consistent process and having a reliable promotion process across the different environments. But also having that doing in a stable, scalable, securing foundation. So having all those pieces, it really makes an internal development platform. Yeah. So far, so good? Yes, It sounds great. So with that in mind, I want to introduce Backstage. It's an open platform for building developer portals. Has been created by Spotify as part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. And it really allows to create platforms so developers can focus and can innovate. That's the main idea. So we can unlock the developer productivity. We can bring that streamlined process. And it also helps us to bring those developer portals functions as an access point. So having that single pane of glass where I can manage everything from my applications, provide that interface to discover all those platform capabilities. And we have many Backstage adopters, and every day are growing. But also, we start thinking about what is really Backstage. So it basically has 5 components, and we have a demo to show you. So it starts with a centralized software catalog. The idea here is that I can start building websites, libraries, and different systems, so I can have that centralized place on that platform, as well as plugins. The plugins is what will allow me to integrate with different products, to enable those capabilities for my applications from CI/CD and enhance my development process. As well as software templates. Software templates are a way that I can start standardizing best practices to build and deploy my applications. Of course, tech docs. The tech docs are important, documentation as code, and after that, I will show you as well that you can search components within Backstage. So everything that you have created, you will have the availability to search within that platform. OK, with that, I want to talk also in more detail about the plugins. So as I said, the plugins will give us that extra functionality. So imagine you have that platform, but you also need how I can integrate my source code within that platform. So we will need a plugin to connect with that, right? So I can use GitLab, I can use GitHub, I can use ITEA, any source code control. But also, when we start thinking about CI and CD, we can integrate with Argo, Jenkins as well, Tacton as well, of course, and many others. So there is a powerful ecosystem that is more than 190 community plugins that you can reuse and you can just integrate with your Backstage. This is really cool. And now, I think, stop talking and we can start showing, this platform. So
cool. And so, of course, we have to do the live demo today. So, Valentina, I'll let you go ahead and introduce what is.
Yeah, so this is a Red Hat Developer Hub, which is built on top of Backstage. It's our enterprise-grade internal developer portal. But we want to show you, we want to give you a demo with this, but also show you how an internal developer portal can be, and what are the things that we need in order to make it easy for users and have everything we need. This Developer Hub has already plugins integrated from community for plugins that Red Hat built. So this is, yes, thank you. This is our, this is the homepage. What you will see here are all the quick access. So here we have, and this is all customizable, it's on a JSON file. So we have community tools, you can add developer tools, CI/CD as well. You can connect with different clusters, monitoring, and security tools. So this is all customizable, and you can change the names as well as, perfect, as well as the links to the different objects. Here at my left, I have the menu. So there are different things that I can do. The catalog that I was talking, this centralized catalog, is the place where I can see everything that's already been created. But if we start thinking about what about security, so we can implement RBAC access, so we can ensure that I can see only the things that are from my team. So this is really cool because I can see the service, I can see the tags, I can also click and go into, Cedric will show more details on the components. As well as what if I am a new developer, right? I am a new developer and I want to know what are the APIs that are exposed within my teams. But also, maybe I need to consume that API. So I want to know this API, so I can just click here and then I can explore the object. I can see all the relationships. I have a Swagger also link that I can explore to see the API document contract, as well as I can have technical documents. As I mentioned, this is important because the technical documentation is critical for everyone, right? To start working with a tool, to containerize, to work with best practices, and having that single place of truth in order to find the documentation is important. As well as, in this case, we have learning paths. We love learning new things, so we want to share here, like, I don't know, it could be anything from Spring Boot, applications, anything, any learning path here. You can connect with different clusters. We have also a tech radar. This is a JSON file as well. The idea is each company can set up the maturity level for each technology. In that sense, they can keep tracking about the adoption of those technologies. So with that, let me take a step back. So what we are seeing here is another version of Backstage, right? It's our Red Hat Developer Hub. It's our enterprise grade that is built on top of Backstage with plugins that are built from Red Hat and community as well. But also you can take Backstage and you can integrate with your own plugins. What I show you here are the different components of the tool. But one of the most important things are the templates. The templates will be what allows me to build and deploy those applications. So Cedric will be showing how that works, but the main idea is I will have a source code repository when I will be creating the different archetypes with best practices. We heard in the previous talk how important is setting up resource consumption, right? What happens if someone's made a mistake and then it got across the company. So we have the availability to set up best practices from the beginning with security and everything in place. Behind the scenes is the power of GitOps doing all the work. So keeping the current state of my cluster from the single source of truth of the source code. But we will see how easy it is for developers to start building applications. Now, yes.
Perfect transition. Well, thanks, Valentina. So as a developer, say I'm in my organization's Backstage instance, and for us, it's Developer Hub. I've got a variety of different templates that are going to kind of guide me through the creation of a new service or component that I'll be able to search from my catalog and be able to view others, of course. But the one that we're going to be creating today is a Flask application that's essentially allowing us to query a model that we have being served in this Kubernetes cluster with Kserve model mesh. Anyone heard of Stable Diffusion? Sweet. Okay, so we're gonna be playing around with Stable Diffusion today. So we've got some cool stuff in store. Before I go and show you how to go through this template and what the process looks like, I also want to show you that this whole step of providing information about where our repositories are going to be and namespaces and all of this is just a CRD. So in our repository here, where I can add new developers in my organization to the Backstage instance, we've got a template that's part of Backstage that allows us to define everything about this path that I'm going to be led through, essentially, in deploying this application as a skeleton. And then, of course, afterwards, I can keep on developing from those best practices that have been deployed for me. So we'll see that from here, we've got information about the component that have been pre-filled from this template file here. So we've got different parameters we can provide. Here we've got the instance of the cluster that we're deploying to, the host gRPC URL for the inference API that we're going to be querying that's hosting our trained version of Stable Diffusion, and some more information here that we can specify before these steps kick off and actually go ahead and generate the source code for our new service. It's going to publish those repositories, not only the source code, but the GitOps manifest and Helm charts. It's going to register it into Backstage here, and it's also going to kick off some GitOps deployment resources so that we can keep our application up to sync with the repo when we make any changes. So that's all in this essentially template.yaml, so it's pretty neat. I talked about that Flask application. It's right here, so it's essentially, we've got a container or Docker file that will take a Python base image and build our Flask application and go ahead and start it for us. The Flask app is pretty simple. Essentially, we're making a gRPC call and essentially generating a new photo, which I'll show here in a second once I actually kick this off. I'll specify the namespace, so KCD New York demo. That's just going to be created in our cluster, and as myself as the owner, I can specify that with this GitHub authentication that we have. And I'll go ahead and kick this off. And so we can also build an image and store that with Tecton to our local internal registry, review everything. And before I create that, I want to show you what the actual model is for anyone who might be a data scientist or messes around with AI here. Okay, fantastic. Do you work with Jupyter Hub, perhaps? Fantastic. Okay, so Jupyter Hub is just a nice IDE for working with notebooks, which are just Python cells. We've already got this model being served inside of the cluster on Kserve. I won't go into too much detail about that, but it can automatically scale up, scale down based on what we need. And what I just want to show is this endpoint that we have on this local cluster. So I'm going to go ahead and, actually, I generated this for the demo, so let me delete this. I'll go ahead and generate and infer this URL that we have that's serving the model with this request. And the prompt is going to be a photo of this dog, this nice dog with a fedora. Let me show you this guy. Super cute dog, a big Red Hat fan, and we're going to be able to generate him based on some training data of 15 images that we took and put him into different locations. This one is going to be in the snowy mountains. So if I go ahead and run these cells, it looks like we've got a new photo here, and we're waiting, actually, we'll wait for the new photo to be saved to this local directory right here. But essentially, we can generate new photos of this dog based on Stable Diffusion, create new backgrounds, and play around with that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is create the component from Backstage. And it kicks off all of these different steps that we saw in that template.yaml, right? To generate the source code from that skeleton, to publish that to the repository, to register it in the catalog of Backstage, to generate the deployment manifest, to deploy it onto our Kubernetes cluster, and a whole lot more. And essentially what happens at the end is we've got repositories that I can show you that have been created, one for the actual code, and then one for the manifest, and a new component in our catalog. So here we've got our new application that we can start coding in, and we've also got a manifest repo for the GitOps here as well. So both of those have been created, and I can also, I'll have to log into GitHub, view that this new component and this new service of this application has been deployed into our cluster. All the pipelines are kicking off in order to build the image. And then once that's in the registry, Argo will sync it in. And then we won't have to wait for that because I've already had it preloaded, of course. But there's plugins that Valentina talked about from the community. For example, Kubernetes to be able to view the different resources that are in a cluster. Of course, we don't have that image built yet, so we're waiting on that to finish with Tekton. But as a developer, this is great to be able to view and just figure out what's going on in the cluster, not have to essentially know all the, what is a deployment, what is GitOps, what is Tekton. I can just focus on writing my code, which is pretty nice. When I have CI/CD, when I have CI pipelines, we'll be able to view the logs here, view the API that's being consumed, work with Swagger, test things out, and any dependencies like that. But that's essentially what components are and services are inside of Backstage. Now I'm going to show you another one that's already been created, which is this AI Gen. Photo generator app. So this one has already been created. If I wanted to open this up in a VS Code instance and iterate locally on my cluster, I could do that. And I can also view, say, if the Argo CD instance is degraded, I can view that as well and resync things manually. So let's go over and check out this application running now in our cluster that's been deployed. This is the Flask app that's running on this public cluster. And I'll go ahead, and if anyone doesn't have any objections, I'm going to put Teddy on the moon. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Sweet. So we'll give it a second here. It's going to inference that model that we have running on top of K-Serve Model Mesh in our cluster. In the meantime, I kind of just want to recap while this is processing. It takes just a few seconds. That we've gone through, we've showed the whole process of working with Backstage and working with different services that we've created from these Golden Path templates that we can actually just register. And each component, once it's been created, has a YAML file that can track it so that we can add existing services in our organization and add them to our directory that is Backstage. So here in a second, round of drum roll, please.
Yes. Oh, my God.
We've got Teddy on the moon.
We have
So,
2 minutes, do the slides. Yeah.
Well, and we had these backup videos, but demo gods were good to us today. Sweet. And I'll just show you this reference architecture from Jupyter Hub, working with the model from Hugging Face, which is stable diffusion, doing some fine-tuning with Kubeflow in order to train it with Dream Booth, which is a training technique for diffusion models, testing it with Jupyter Hub, serving it, and then consuming it, scaffolding a new application with Backstage, and deploying that onto our Kubernetes or OpenShift cluster, and bam, we were able to see Teddy on the moon.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. So what about security, right? We need to start thinking about security from the start so that we have many plugins and integrations from Keycloak that you can secure that you have an authentication place before accessing even Backstage. You have Sigstore. All of these are all open source projects. Sigstore as well to sign and verify any artifacts that you are using. We have WAC you can use as well that is aggregating metadata and to learn about, for example, vulnerabilities. KubeLinter is for static analysis as well. Your YAML file, you can ensure you have best practices and security in place. Tekton chains as well as part of the CI/CD process. Project Quay, and going fast because of the time. Project Quay to store and also do vulnerability scan. Claire for visibility. And also, policy agent, you can ensure that you have policies around your whole software development lifecycle. Don't forget about Argo that can keep that monitoring status across the cluster, and Stack Rocks to build and deploy and bring risk analysis and vulnerability scanning. Really quickly, so best practices after working with customers, it's thinking about security from the beginning. Find your personas, start finding your champions who can start bringing this adoption into other teams. Start small. Maybe you can start with tech docs or small, I don't know, software templates, but also ensure that there is a maintainer for those so we can keep those up to date. And then ensure that you do have one portal. That means not bring many different IDPs. So the idea is to have that consistency across the organization. With that, thank you so much. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being here.
And there are additional resources over there as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.